And so this is kind of a version of the presentation I gave at the Catholic Art Institute conference last year, but I've been working on it since. I just thought it was brilliant, and I needed another opportunity to deliver it. But no, I thought it would be fun to do it with artists in this context, so I retreated it up a bit, and so we'll see. But it's this question of, what do we mean when we say Christian art? And I know that to me, there's an aspect to that question which is like saying, what do we mean by Christian baseball? Like, do Christians play baseball differently? Is there a Christian way to play baseball? And on one level, no. On one level, it's like, you got to be good at baseball. You got to know your craft. You got to do it, right? But then there's like, well, maybe we can say a little bit more than that, So we're heading there. But I want to basically, in this talk, present like 4 questions, I think, or maybe 5, for you to be thinking of during this 2 days, and trying to come up with some answers bring them to Jesus, see what he says to you, and related to this, what are we doing thing as artists in the church, right? So just like right off the top, Christianity.com, which is an evangelical publication mainly, but they said, I think it was last year, that, okay, we're settling this. Christian art is anything made by Christians. And so the question I ask right off the bat is just being Christian equal to having a Christian imagination, a Christian artistic imagination? Is that you're baptized, so therefore you are? And so I give you this example of this painting, or maybe who knows how it was generated, so it's Jesus, but he's half a lion. And in typical evangelical form, they needed to make it that you get it, right? Jesus is the lion. And I think a Catholic doing this, you just would have the lion, and maybe he'd have like, a chalice or, the crown of thorns somewhere on him or something like that. But evangelicals have to, really... they don't believe in subtext.
I thought he was the lamb.
Yeah, right. He's the lamb and the lion of Judah and all that, right? But I think that it seems to me that this is simply too literal to be Christian art. And I'm gonna say it's the same thing as saying, like, people say good friend or bad friend. I think you're a friend or you're not. Right? And I think, but in art. In Christian art, it's like it's either Christian or it's not. And so I'm going to say that even though the subject matter, this was made by a Christian, I don't really think it's Christian because it lacks subtext. And it's going to be a point that I'm going to develop here. So to the same extent, this project seems to me to fail in reverence and beauty. And then theology, why does Elvis merit a halo and Jesus doesn't? But what you have here is, okay, this is, so the second one is from Unplugged, where they said a Christian film, and then could work with art, is any film which affirms religious faith as one of its primary features. So if the subject matter is religious, then that makes it's Christian. So the first one is if it's made by somebody who's baptized, it's Christian. The second one is if it depicts anything from our stuff, it's Christian. It reminds me of one time I was doing I used to review movies in Hollywood, and I was going to see a screening of an absolutely dreadful movie. It was a vehicle for Keanu Reeves called Constantine. And on the way in, the Warner Brothers publicist knew me, and he goes, "Barbara, you're going to love this one. It has all your stuff in it." And I was like, all our stuff? And sure enough, there were, holy water and candles and incense and Ouija boards and, horoscopes and like pretty much anything that dealt with the world of the occult or the unseen or whatever was like your stuff. And so he's like, is that enough? Just the fact that you're doing that? And I'm going to say no, because you have this movie by Scorsese, which is all about our stuff. It's all about Jesus, but I could not call this a Christian film. And, okay. I just learned transitions in PowerPoint, and the rest of the world has moved on to Canva, but here I am, right? St. John Damascene says, through the icons of Christ, we are sanctified. Through the icons of Christ, we are sanctified. Huh? Does that include this?
No.
Does that include this? So, mustn't an icon of Christ be more than just a depiction of Jesus? Why does it matter? Well, I think to pastors and educators, I would say, we have to give them some guidelines. Priests don't tend to have any aesthetic formation anymore. I don't know that they ever did, but they at least they were growing up in a church where there was the possibility of seeing good aesthetics, and but now maybe not. And yet they're the gatekeepers in the church for commissioning you. And maybe some of you are fantastic, but maybe some of you, your art is meant to be personal therapy and not necessarily paid for by the people of God and displayed in the commons of the church, right? So I think that one of the things we have to figure, to answer this question, what is truly Christian art, is for that purpose, right? Let's see if we can't come up with some guidelines. But then for us as artists, it gives us a bar. It gives us a bar, something to shoot for. That it's like, okay, this is going to really render my work truly, authentically Catholic. Okay. So this was a film that I really took issue with, and it cost me hugely professionally, because they wanted to. This is coming from Angel Studios, and they're the only ones with any money right now in the film business. And I told them, I think this movie's horrible, because it's the great apostle of the Sacred Heart, and the movie, 2-hour movie, doesn't mention Jesus. Not once. There's only one small reference to God in the whole film. We never see her praying. And she's basically a feminist for fighting, the men in the church, the patriarchy, and it ends with her having doing shots with the mayor of New York. And you're just like, who is this person? And so I kind of was hard on the movie. But again, so the first question, what makes our work Christian and what makes it good or bad as work, are things that I want us to think about. And even where our heart is in the right place, we can still brood over this, right? And say, how can I make this better? So here's my principles I'm going to put out there. That I think Christian art is beautiful, reverent, charitable, comes from our country, it's a phrase of Flannery O'Connor, and is sacramental. Okay, so what do I mean by all this, right? Well, beauty, first and foremost, and this is way outside my scope to talk about. I'm considering doing more of it tomorrow, we'll see, but what is beauty? Beauty is wholeness plus harmony plus radiance. That is, a work is complete, it's not missing anything, that's wholeness. It's harmonious, that means all the parts, first they're present, but the way they relate to one another is that they show off the best in each other. Complementarity, not domination. And then there's a radiance, there's an enlightenment, and it's usually something beyond language that comes through the beautiful. Some new certainty, some new conviction, some new, again, I can't put it in words, that's why I need beauty. But this question of, okay, wholeness brings peace, according to St. Thomas, because you're not searching anymore when you experience something that's whole. It's like, in this whole life, everything is missing stuff. But in this beautiful thing, I feel it's all there. Nobody goes to look at the Pietà in St. Peter's and goes, yeah, she needs some fringe around her veil. Nobody goes into the Sistine Chapel and goes, needs more yellow. Yeah, obviously, what a failure. Right? It suggests completion, both of them. Harmony, when we experience the pieces in a work of art all complementing each other, we feel joy. Why? Because it's a mirror of what we're meant for. That we're going to be with the one who is complete, and all of us are going to be there, and we're all going to be dwelling together without competition, without fear, without coercion. And when we experience that in beauty, it's like a foretaste of heaven. And so it makes us happy. And then finally, we have a nature that wants to know. We were made to know. And when we get this radiance in beauty in the art, our nature feels fulfilled. I just learned something. Even if I can't put it in words, I'm deeper and better for this experience. That part of me which wants to learn has been satisfied. So, the question is, why does our work need to be beautiful? Well, it doesn't if you're making stuff for the church these days, unfortunately. Mainly what they want, in most churches that I know, they want something that makes everybody feel like they were part of it. But I think that we give another message when we put this kind of thing up in the church, right? The message we give is that we're kind of people who are cheap, uninspired, easy, and sloppy. And even if we have the best of intentions, now, is it okay to have children do stuff? Absolutely. I'm all about beginner efforts. I'm all about educational efforts. I'm all about getting there. But when you think about commissioning art, that people are going to walk off the street and say, who are these people? It's hugely significant. One time I had a friend who had just become Catholic in Hollywood, and she'd been one of the top women writers in television for many years, and the Pope John Paul II was having the media jubilee, and then he was having for media people and culture people, and so I invited her. I was like, "You want to go to Rome with me?" And she's like, "Yes." So I took her to St. Peter's, and I'm walking in. I've been there quite a bit because I was teaching there a lot, and I'm walking, and over here is the Pietà, and over there is St. Peter, and over there, and all of a sudden I realized I was alone. And I looked back, and she was like 10 feet in the doorway, like this. And I went up to her, I was like, what's wrong? And she said, I am never arguing with anybody about Catholicism again until they've been here. Like, it's a miracle. Pope Benedict says that the greatest proof that the Catholic Church is real is the lives of her saints and the beauty of the work that she produces. Isn't that interesting? More convincing than giving somebody a theology lesson. Play them the Ave Verum. That's more compelling. Okay. So beauty comes out of the mystery of talent, and I think that we need to own this. And it's not that God is unfair. some of us can do stuff that other people can't, and that is beautiful and a gift. And it's not something to feel like, oh, well, I'm bragging on myself here, or showing up, or standing out, and I got to be humble. It's like, don't worry, your work will humiliate you. John Paul II says in the letter to artists that every attempt we make to do something to realize the inspiration we've had is fundamentally humiliating, because you're never going to be as good as what your inspiration from God was. And then you got to learn to cope with that. But I love this line from Flannery O'Connor. There's only one answer to the question of why are you a writer? And that is because I'm good at it. So we have to kind of be okay with this reality of talent. And it's very cosmically unfair, I suppose, that someone can sing and someone can't. But on the other hand, that's a wrong way to look at it. It's like these are gifts. And we have to find them and celebrate them and elevate them and support them. And you have to do that first in your own life. There's no wall in St. Peter's for Doris and Stan, who couldn't paint but had a heart for the Lord. We've lost something, kind of the ability to say that there's a gift here or there's not. We just want everybody to feel welcome. But we have to find what everybody's gift is. Okay, so just kind of bringing it together. Beauty. If Christian art is first and foremost beautiful, it's whole, it's harmonious, and it's radiant, it's not then badly crafted, trite, cliched, vapid, ordinary, common, conventional, overdone, stale, unimaginative, uninteresting, dull, uninvolving, trivial, easy, sophomoric, predictable, obvious, or political. Like all of those things militate against wholeness, harmony, and radiance. So here's a question for you. Retreat question number 1. How does an artist prepare themselves to uncover new epiphanies of beauty? How do you get yourself ready to create a work that is whole, that isn't missing anything? How do you create a work that is harmonious, where all the parts are complementing each other? How do you prepare yourself to do that? How do you prepare yourself to have a work that communicates something profound, some enlightenment? I've got opinions on all of that. Come to dinner and sit next to me and I'll give you some suggestions, huh? Okay, so number 2 then is, so here's my principle, letting out this next part, is I think bad art is rooted in bad theology. Bad Christian art is rooted in bad. So very bad art, it seems to me, or very bad theology is the lack of mystery, where we try to explain everything. And I remember when I was a student and we were learning the heresies, and one of the ways my professor taught us the heresies he would give the diagram. Here's monophysitism, and he did it, and here's docetism, and he did the thing. So finally I was like, can you draw the way it really is? And he's like, no, if I could, it would be a heresy. So that is that there's stuff about theology that is beyond us. It's not a cop-out to say these mysteries are beyond the human mind to comprehend. I mean, I raise chickens. There's a lot of things I do that are beyond my chickens' minds to understand. And they're okay with that because they just want whatever I'm going to give them. But I think we have, always this temptation that if I can't fit it in my brain, it must not be real, right? So this is bad theology. Why? Because Jesus is not arm wrestling Satan. I mean, that should be St. Michael. But this makes it look like it's kind of close, isn't it? It's not. It's over. This is bad theology. And tacky, consequently. Okay, so Flannery O'Connor says, the artist with Christian concerns will find in modern life distortions which are repugnant to him. And his problem will be to make these appear as distortions to an audience that is used to seeing them as natural. So there's a subject for us. That things that the world has started to see as normal and natural, it's like, no, somehow we have to reveal them as being not. And that you're kind of driven by that for the love of people. Reverence is activity that is profoundly respectful. I said Christian art is reverent. It's profoundly respectful. It's a movie, Noah, which was not profoundly respectful of the scriptures. In fact, I said to the guy who made it, I said, if you did to Harry Potter what you did to Noah, it would be. I said, you wouldn't do to Harry Potter what you did to Noah. And he goes, of course not. Harry Potter has a fan base. And he's like, and Noah doesn't? But yeah, I mean, it was, by the end of this movie, you're rooting against Noah because he's trying to murder a child. Questions about The Chosen. Jonathan's a friend of mine. Dallas Jenkins is a friend of mine. But I said, I was like, sometimes the show borders on not really reverent to me. I don't know. There's not enough mystery in it where you look away a little bit. But I'm going to give them more chops than criticism because what they've done. And it's having a profound impact on people. But it is a question that we need to ask ourselves. How is our art reverent? What is reverence, huh? I think reverence means subtext. We have to have things that stand for other things, that underlie. And when you take subtext out, it's insulting. Because you're saying, I've synthesized the whole thing here. There's nothing left to know or see. But it seems to me great art has this kind of, as Emily Dickinson says, nature is a house that is haunted. Art is a house that seeks to be haunted. By that sense, I'm showing you a butterfly here, but this is really about, right, something else. Flannery O'Connor again. Christian dogma affects the Christian's writing primarily by guaranteeing his respect for mystery. So the more you become somebody who broods over the truths of our faith, the more reverence you'll have and the more kind of sense of this you'll have. Sometimes we look away. Or we look, as St. Paul says, through a glass darkened. Reverence in Christian art requires imagery. There it is. Metaphor, symbols. We are an analogical faith. Islam is dialogical, right? God is not. God is not the mountain. God is not Jesus. God is not dancing. We're metaphorical. God is like the mountain. God is like the ocean. God is like the kitten. God is like the person, who's dying. God is like, right? And we're just like kind of circling around, which is what art does. So I think if you make anything talking about the transcendent without metaphor, you're in trouble. Be careful. Reverence requires imagery. Here's a painting I love. So it's the saints, St. Sebastian, I guess St. Francis with the Blessed Mother and baby Jesus. But here's the part I love here. It's this snail. There's a snail at the bottom of the painting. It's like, what is that doing there? Well, you should go and listen to Chloe Redaway, Dr. Chloe Redaway. She has an entire YouTube on this painting, and the name of it is Christ is Not a Snail. But that snail has this huge kind of significance of grounding this crazy mystery in our world, where there are snails crawling around. Like it takes it out of the realm of, and now this is your back porch, right? And so something just like that, it's like huge. And if you sit there and brood over it, it's like, why is there a snail in this painting? And that'll deepen you and can save you. There is reverence in wrestling with God. There is a reverent way to wrestle with God. Here's a beautiful Rembrandt of the wrestling with God from the scriptures, right? Flannery O'Connor, again, sorry, but I did my doctorate on her, so meh. The Christian writer does not decide what the world needs to receive and then delivers it. Rather, he finds the courage to wrestle naked in the public square with his angels and demons. That's what Christian art is. Not telling everybody what they need to know, but wrestling in the public square with your angels and demons. And she says, wondering if you're going to come out of it okay. So that's honesty, it's trust, but it's reverent fundamentally. These are two other images of the wrestling with God, right? One is so hyper-tinged with eroticism, it's actually undermining the biblical story. The other one is just bad. There's nothing to it. There's nothing beyond the, here are two figures wrestling, Okay, so here's retreat question number 2 for you. How does an artist prepare themselves to work reverently, knowing that the word reverence means fear of the Lord? How can you become someone who, when you start your work, you're in a posture of reverence? Obviously prayer, right? But some kind of remote preparation, the sacraments, prayer groups, Bible study, theology study, communicating with God in whatever way he speaks to you, nature, or with me it's chickens. But that done intentionally, as this is deepening my reverence, my understanding of God being out there all around me. And then my art will be imbued with that. We'll have questions at the end, don't worry. So charity is a response. So charity is the next one. I said a Christian art is charitable. So charity is a response to God that expresses itself as doing good to our neighbors. You're doing your art as a response to God, which makes him happy when you do good things for his people that he loves. But you're overflowing with this response of gratitude, of wonder, of wrestling with whatever it is. But you are doing this just like this. I'm giving this back to you, God. This is me responding to you, but for all of them. Pope Francis says, charity cannot be neutral or indifferent. Charity takes risks. For true charity is always unmerited, unconditional, and gratuitous. Charity is creative. Hippocrates says, the first rule of charity, it seems, is don't do any harm. I love this line, too, from C.S. Lewis. Seems to me to be relevant here. Aslan is never safe, but he's good. That should be your work. Your work is not safe, but it's good. As has been said already, it seems to be the theme of this retreat, which we didn't discuss, but Jesus will have his way. There is no charity without sacrifice. This is from the letter to artists, Pope John Paul II. The particular vocation of individual artists decides the arena in which they serve and points as well to the tasks they must assume, the hard work they must endure, and the responsibility they must accept. It's so cool you have a talent. But there's a flip side, isn't there? To whom great power is given, there is great responsibility. Thank you, Spider-Man. I love this painting, right? He's painting a beautiful picture of a meal. But look at him. It's fantastic. By Haynes. Starving Artist, it's called. Okay, so here's retreat question number 3. How does an artist prepare themselves to work reverently in the fear? Did I ask that already? Yeah. Oh, shoot, no, that's not the right one then. What was this one we just did? Oh, rads. Oh, sacrifice, I'm sorry. Yep, sorry about that. How does an artist prepare themselves for the sacrifice that is going to come? I'm in the process right now of, we're making a deal for me to write a movie. And, they tell me what's the schedule going to be, what's going to be the delivery schedule. In screenwriting, you deliver, they pay you in stages as you deliver the pieces. So the first part is the treatment, the outline. You're going to do research. It's going to be it's an 8-week process, and you give them finally an outline. You get paid when you start, you get paid when you deliver it. Then there's a month fighting over the outline. Then you take it and you do what's called the first draft. 5 months, first draft, give it back, another month, notes, whatever. Rewrite, 3 months, give it back, 2 weeks, polish, 2 weeks. And that's the next year. And, I made up the schedule and I put the real dates in it. And then I started being I can't do this. I can't do this. How can I sign a contract? I'm a hack. I'll never be able to do it. I've done it 12 times. But every time I think I'm not going to be able to do it because I know how hard it is. It's so humiliating what we do. On one level, if you let it be, and again, it shouldn't be, but the truth is, some days I got nothing. But I've learned when I got nothing, go into church and sit in the chapel. And you'll at least feel better. But then you never know. God will have mercy on you. And then plop, you get it. There was one script I worked on for 5 years. I couldn't come up with I needed the moment of transformation of the character that really was a visual that would show. And the movie was optioned, it was out there, but I just knew it was missing this thing and I just couldn't come up with it. And I was at my end of my rope with it and I decided there was no end. And so then I was at a writer's conference and I went to this thing in Estes Park, Colorado, and I walk in and there's all these blue-haired ladies. And I'm like, these people are not going to be screenwriters. But Jesus was they're my people. You give them your best. I'm like, all right. So here's 8 blue-haired ladies. And so I do my heart out, teaching them how to be a screenwriter and how to make movies and all this stuff. And then I said, for example, how hard it is. I've been working on this thing. And I gave them a little of the setup of what the part was that I needed. And all of a sudden, one lady goes, oh. And I'm like, yes. She's like, I know how to fix your problem. And I was like, oh, please. And I was like, we'll talk later. So I was just yeah, right, lady. Your first day of screenwriting and you're going to fix my 6-year-old problem. She comes up to me and she goes, I saw it when you were talking. This is what you need to do. Blah, 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 blah. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And I have to tell you, every single person who reads that darn screenplay says to me, you know that scene in the basement? And I'm like, yes. So even though she solved my problem, I have to tell everyone who praises that scene, yeah, I really kind of didn't come up with that. Somebody gave it to me. Anyway, huh? All right. Write from your own country. Write from your own country. Being in the church, according to Flannery O'Connor, is our country as artists. And one of the things you're doing is you're convincing people that this is the world I'm coming from. And even if you're not trying to sell people on it, you're trying to represent it to them. What is it to be Catholic world? A truly Catholic understanding and the presumptions of it and the, the kind of all the subtexts and everything, huh? And so we produce art from the well of our talent, memory, experience, heritage, but then our faith too. Our faith should kind of come out. And again, you're not selling it. You're just saying, this is the world I come from. Here it is. What is our country? Flannery O'Connor says, everything from the actual countryside that the novelist describes on to and through the particular characteristics of his region and nation, and on through and under all those his true country, which the writer with Christian convictions will consider to be what is eternal and absolute. It's like the kind of weird stuff about us that comes along with what we believe. And the idea is just to let people see it. Think about you're doing a painting of the Blessed Mother. It's more than just a picture of a lady wearing a blue veil. It's what do we believe about her in this moment? Who is she? What do I have to say? There's that radiance about her. So that people have the whiff of Our Lady from your work. Do they get the whiff of the church? Do they get the whiff of Christ? The aroma of Christ, as St. Paul would have it, huh? Okay, so she says every country has a body of manners. And the question is, well, as Catholics, what is our body of manners? The way we do things, the way we treat human beings, the way we treat... I love this one here. This is a death photo. And in 19th century Victorian America, they would take people who died and dress them up, and then the family would all come and pose with them. But it was like the manners of a way of kind of respecting the person's life, and this is our last shot with them. And I mean, today we'd be like horrified, but that's kind of who they were in Victorian era America, And it's like, okay, just describing that ritual lets people into who they were. This one here is of Barcelona when I went there first time, and every Saturday night during the summer, all the old people come, a lot of them are Basques, they come in front of the basilica and dance. And the kids kind of all stand and watch, and then they kind of take their place, but they have their dances. It's like, what? This has been going on for millennia. Dancing in front of the basilica. That's our manners. We do that, and then underneath it is why. And you don't have to say why in art. And you give it away. You kill it if you do. Yeah, not sure what this one's doing there. This art, yeah. Anyway, okay. All right, so one of the questions is our country as Catholics always look on the bright side? Right? We're the happy people. Is that who we really are? Like O'Connor again says, the artist who emphasizes spiritual values is very likely to take the darkest view of all that he sees in the country today. The sharper the light of faith, the more glaring are apt to be the distortions the writer sees in the life around him. So she says, not chipper, but wry, grimly resolute. I mean, we just had Great Britain this week. Parliament voted hugely that it is okay to abort a child up unto and during birth. We're going to be chipper about that? How can we be chipper? We have to be grim and resolute, it seems to me. So this thing of the look through rose-colored glasses, right? You know, the question is this Christian hope? This thing of this, I lifted this out off of somebody's thing. This is, on Google. Look through rose-colored glasses. Don't presume we don't see what's real and true, but it does mean we're choosing a lovely hue for a more optimistic view. They even had to make it rhyme. But is that the duty of us to always make things, you know? Is that hope? I don't think so. I think it's a kind of narcotic, aesthetic, you know, we're anesthetizing maybe, but I don't know that it's really the answer in this moment. She says, our country is first and foremost our own hearts as redeemed by Christ. So you don't have to look real hard for what to write about or what to do your art. Look in your own heart in this moment, in the place you live, this person you are from our country, and you bring that into your work. The writer's value is lost both to himself and to his country as soon as he ceases to see that country is part of himself, and to know oneself is above all to know what one lacks. So again, it's not us coming down at people and delivering what we think they need. It's looking in our own hearts and putting that out as a sign of connection and hope. She says, our country, Catholicism, must become every country. It is the particular burden of the writer, the fiction writer, that he has to make one country do for all, and that he has to evoke that one country through the concrete particulars of a life he can make believable. So she's talking here about, yeah, your art is going to be set wherever it's going to be set. Your story is going to be set. You know, my story that I'm looking to write, it's about this woman who was an archaeologist, who was on the spectrum. She was, as one priest who worked with her said, a very difficult woman. She was an atheist, but she ended up finding St. Peter's bones. And so it becomes this journey to faith. Why does it matter that we have relics? What am I doing here? Why does it matter that I'm in a church or not? Why were these people in the church so intent on carving all around Peter's grave? What were they doing? Why? So, but this is the deeper question for everybody to ask. So even though my country of the story is 1950s Rome, you know, in an archaeological dig, hopefully it will be everybody's country, you know, through the subtext. Yeah, again, this is just a repetition. Why should we depict rot? Should we depict rot? Rot being, as Pope John Paul II said, the absence of God. Anywhere around us, the absence of God. He says contemporary, especially pagan artists have shown us with powerful clarity what the world without God looks like. But she says some write about rot because they see it and recognize it for what it is. Interesting, huh? All right, so here's the goal, right? And I'm just about done here. The ruminator. O'Connor says, our job as artists is to turn your reader, your viewer, the people who encounters your work into a ruminator. This is a ruminator. My grandfather had cows. They take tough grass and then they mull it and they chew it hard, and the acids in their saliva break it down. And then they swallow it, and the acids in their stomach work, and then they burp it up, and they chew it some more and suck on it. And that process is what's nutritional for the cow, what nourishes them. I remember once Bessie the cow had lost her cud, and my grandfather was a Maine guy, and I'm like, Grandpa, what's wrong with Bessie? She's going around mooing mournfully. And he said, she dropped her cud, and she weren't done with it yet. So she had been sucking on this cud for a couple days, and she was almost at the point of getting it to that she could finally keep it down, and she lost it. But imagine your work, right? Coming up on people. They have to chew it. It's tough. She says, a good work of art works in a reader when the sense of mystery is deepened by contact with reality. And in turn, the sense of reality is deepened with the contact with mystery. That's what we're doing. We're making reality and mystery, right? Catechism says sacred art draws man to adoration. This is the sacramental aspect, to prayer and to the love of God. This is why we need it. This is why we need you. You're going to draw people to adoration and prayer and the love of God. One time, my sister's an opera singer, my youngest sister, and one time I went home at Christmas, and she was never home at Christmas because it's a big time for opera singers to, sing. But she didn't have a gig that night. She was going to sing in New York the next day. We lived in Connecticut. So my parents had this teeny little country church, about the size, honestly, of, this part of the room. There's like 40 families there crammed in for midnight mass. They had no music. So Valerie went up to the priest and she said, Father, how about I sing something after communion? And he goes, sure. We never have music here, right? So she goes up into the into the choir loft. And she sang O Holy Night in French, a cappella. And people were weeping. They started to cry. Have you seen any of those videos where people, they go and they, like random moments of beauty, they sing the Alleluia chorus in a shopping mall, right? But to watch the effect of that on people, it connects them, it gives them touch their nature, it gives them joy, it gives them, it takes them out of themselves. How do you make your work grace-giving? The answer is, you don't. Only God can take your offering and make it a means of grace. But you can do your damnedest to have something that's respectful, that's charitable, that's beautiful, that's reverent. The best you can do. Be like Abel. I'm going to give the best I can do. Again, I remember Valerie used to be unhappy all the time, complaining because she was never getting the gigs she wanted. And then one day she changed and she was suddenly, nice to be around. And I said to her, Valerie, I've noticed you haven't been bitching for a while. And she said, I figured something out. And I was like, what's that? And she said, I realized I don't have to be the best opera singer in New York. I only have to sing the best song I can sing. And that's a mouthful. to all of us, are you singing the best song you can sing? Why not? Why not? What's the best song you can sing? Huh? But once you do, you can stand back and say, that's what I do. I did, Jesus. I hope it was okay. I hope it was okay. So, all right, so these are all things to think about over this next day and a half.